Back on the football show, NorthJerseySports.com's original multimedia series talking all things football across North Jersey. This is the season finale, Season 6, Episode 15, and what a long, strange trip it has been. I am Corey Doviak, being joined by my illustrious panel of North Jersey football insiders, two guys who watched every bowl game available to them and every state final that was played over the weekend at MetLife Stadium. That's 13 apiece, a grand total of 26 for these two guys, starting with the venerable one, Jimmy Avatable. What's going on, Jimmy?
What's up, Core? Another long, strange road. It became. Had a fun season, and right now I think we're all in a little bit of football withdrawal, but we're looking forward to wrapping up the season with the show.
Absolutely. And another guy who went all out over the weekend, the head Husky in charge, with the hotel room, the commanding view of the traffic on the Berries Creek Bridge, Route 3, Route 17, did not miss one snap of any of the 13 games played over the weekend. He is Brian Carr. What's going on, Bri?
Hey, it was we were getting withdrawals there near the end. It was getting long. It was getting to be a long, lot of games, a lot of football. So by the time we got done at night, we were usually upstairs. It started raining, but it was it's a good time. It's good to see it. It's sad that it has to end, but all things must come to an end, and so it's good. We'll talk about it tonight.
Yes, tonight we're going to wrap up the last two bowl games that were played concerning North Jersey teams in our coverage area, starting with Wayne Hills last Friday night, and then the season finale for Bergen County football, which took place on Saturday morning at MetLife Stadium. We're going to do that, and then we're going to hand out our postseason awards. First time we're doing that on the football show here on NorthJerseySports.com, and this came about is because we were all together in the same spot at the little cubby hole on the field at MetLife Stadium on Saturday. We whipped out the old notepad, made some notes, and came up with some guys and some teams that rightfully should be honored at the end of the 2018 high school football season. But, Brian, let me get your thoughts first, because you were so intimately involved down there. I mean, you interviewed 100 people, both for last week's show and this week's show. We got some tape we're going to play for you from Piscataway's win and also from Wayne Hills' win. But first ever iteration of the bowl games in high school football in New Jersey. We talked a lot about it about last week's show, but now that the whole thing is in the books, what are your impressions?
I think I was thinking about it. I think in a couple of years, maybe we'll look at it a little different. One of the concerns we had is rivalries. We talked about, there wasn't a lot of rivalry games or teams that have been used to playing the other teams on a regular basis. I think maybe in a few years, as this goes about, we're gonna see more rivalries show up. We did see a few, by the way, and like Heights played Butler, so that was a league. Those two teams playing each other in the same league. So there were some, but typically there weren't many rivalries here. But for certain kids, we heard it. Piscataway coach Dan Higgins mentioned it to you, asked him the question, and he said he thought it was great. His team had a chance to win their 13th game. Same with Ramapo. They won their 13th game by winning their bowl game. These teams and also Ramapo said that was one of their goals at the beginning of the year. It's not to get a ring to where if we win a state sectional title, it was to win in a bowl game. So some teams made it their goal to win that bowl game. So I think it's going to take a little while. One thing that we noticed is the attendance seemed to be a little low, and some topic possibly maybe you're better off doing a Keene or Rutgers, somewhere in the middle, because these teams, some of them have to drive 100 miles from Cherry Hill or South Jersey and Atlantic City, and some of those teams are a long way, so the fans don't want to go 100 miles to sit maybe in the rain, like we had rain a lot. So, I think it's a start. It's definitely a start, and it was good, and, some people, too, we said some people just were happy they showed up. There were some teams, and we noticed that, hey, they were happy to win a state title they hadn't won in a long time, a sectional title. Some of these teams, and I'm not going to name the teams, I think we said that with Kittatinny, they showed up and they're like, wow, they've never been there. So they walked in, and all of a sudden now, and Rutherford, who has been there last year, they've been there, we're ready. Same with probably Butler a little bit too. Heights was in there last, the year before last, not last year, because they were Keene last year. But, so some teams they've been there before. And these newer teams, it's a big deal. It's harder. So the teams that have been there have a little bit of an advantage. So, but it's fun for us. The one thing that's great for us, we got to see a lot of state sectional finals. In the past, now we get bowl games, they're all at one place. So in the past, we had to make choices. Like last year, we didn't see Heights last year in their final. We decided to be at MetLife. I think that was the old Japan game, and there was something up at MetLife. We wanted to be up there. We didn't see Heights play their final, sectional final. So this year, with all the bowl games, you got to see every bowl game. Not that they were all bowl games you wanted to go see, because, I've never seen half these teams, from Woodrow Wilson. There's some good teams. Shawnee, Woodrow Wilson, or Willingboro. There's a bunch of teams I've never seen. So enough of me talking. Jimmy can let Jimmy share his thoughts and share a bunch of mine.
Yeah, no, the one thing I want to mention, too, and Jimmy, you could take it over right after this, is, we were talking about it, too, when you talk about attendance. The first round of bowl games were played that Friday night after Thanksgiving, and it never occurred to me, especially when we had Bear on the week before, and he was saying that was going to interrupt his meal, and, but hey, listen, that's the life of a coach, that's what you sign up for. But the thing that really came to fruition, I think, when in terms of attendance, is you're asking people to drive from all over the place to get to one of the busiest places, forget in New Jersey, in America, on Thanksgiving, the most highly traveled weekend of the year, that Friday night after Thanksgiving, to the confluence of Route 3, the New Jersey Turnpike, and Route 17. If you got to come from more than from Rutherford, you're sitting in traffic and everything else, and it can certainly dissuade the casual fan from showing up at MetLife Stadium. That's my 2 cents. But I will say this, too, though. I enjoyed both Ramapo and Ridgewood played on the Saturday morning games. And for me, I was really looking forward to getting up on Saturday morning, making the drive with no traffic, and watching some high school football games in daylight. And I enjoyed both of those contests. Your thoughts, Jimmy?
Yeah, for the football nut, and we consider ourselves a football nut.
Correct.
It's great. It's great to see teams that you've heard about, how good they are, and I really thought the level of play was very, very good in most of the games. Were there a couple of blowouts? Yes, but that's always going to happen. The average football fan in North Jersey, I don't think the average fan was willing to go there and sit and watch 13 games, obviously. And the South Jersey fan, the average fan, not the parent, not the nut fan, are they willing to take a 2-hour ride up and watch a game? And the answer to that was no. I mean, the attendance, in some of the games, it looked like Camden Wilson had about 150 or 200 people there.
Right.
And that was the way for most of the Southern teams. Obviously, Rumson brought a nice crowd, but I think when we talk about lack of attendance, let's talk about Phillipsburg. 9 days before, they're playing their rival at Lafayette, and they're drawing 23,000 people. And it seemed in their eyes, hey, once we won the sectional, once we played our Thanksgiving Day game, the most of their fans didn't want any more of it. So I think Brian's right. As we go farther down the line, I think more people will get into it. But if you have the opportunity to go watch teams from out of the area play, take advantage of it, because there's a lot of good players and a lot of good teams.
Yeah, one of the concerns I've had all along is just too many games, the wear and tear on high school athletes. And, when you get to 13, like Piscataway, like Ramapo, and you got to, we got to cut one out of the regular season or do something else to just balance it out. I don't think you certainly can't go another week forward to play true state finals, because it's just, I believe that it's too much on high school football players, to ask them to play 14 games when many college teams, the ones who don't make a bowl are playing 12, and the ones who do make a bowl play 13. So,
right.
You don't want high school students playing as many as Alabama and Clemson. So that's my my 2 cents on that. But let's get into the games themselves before we get to our postseason awards. And let's start with, I'm going to turn this over to you, Brian, first. I was not there on Friday night to see Wayne Hills' 35-21 victory over Phillipsburg. I know it was back and forth early. I followed Brian Carr's tweets the whole way through and retweeted the best I could, but sometimes, Brian, I just can't keep up. So why don't you talk a little bit about Wayne Hills Phillipsburg?
Yeah, it was. We saw some good talent on the field. I hadn't seen Phillipsburg prior to this. Phillipsburg's got the tradition, like Jimmy said. They've been playing their Thanksgiving game for 100 years. I saw them a couple of years ago down in Thanksgiving. It was great to see them. It's quite a program. A lot of people follow them, big supporters. They had a really good season. Their quarterback's a gunslinger. He looked like we were talking about. He's like a baseball player. He can throw the ball really well. So first half, Peaburg was able to, the Liners, they call him, Phillipsburg, Peaburg, was able to, get the lead. And quarterback Jack staggered. He had a great game. He was throwing really well. But ultimately, it was the big boys for Wayne Hills. And I was thinking about this, is that they did the same thing to Peaburg that they did to Old Japan in the sectional final. They were down at halftime. They're down by a score. And they come out in the second half and step it up. Now, this game, the last time it was Michael Joyce. Michael Joyce had a big game in the second half, ran for 150 yards. But this time, they got the big the receiver out. They got Charles Majuko, and they got Jared Hyack. They got those guys going. And there was one drive where they were down. They were down by a score, and they used the two guys. And once those guys got going, that was it. Majuko had 3 touchdowns. He had one early. He had the game-tying one. And they just took over. They had the advantage. They were taller than Phillipsburg, so they really dominated. So, and the quarterback Sharkey had a great game. He was like 14 for 21, a couple hundred yards passing, 3 TDs. But his passing was right on, right to Majuko. And Majuko he's an all-time talent. He's a big kid. He's hard to stop. He's hard to cover. He's tall. He's 6'4". It's in the family. His 2 brothers one's in the NFL. So it's, but Sharkey had a great game. Hyack he set the tone. Hyack had a big touchdown, like a 75-yard run, 64-yard TD run, early in the game. It kind of looked like they were going to, really powered up early, but their passing game in the second half really stepped it up, and they took over, and they used their size to their advantage.
Let's take a listen to some of the sound from that game as Brian Carr caught up with the aforementioned wide receiver / quarterback combination. Let's start with Charles Njoku after the game.
Brian Carr, North Jersey Sports. What did you guys talk about at halftime? Down 21-14. And go ahead. All
right, so I'm not sure what Wayne Demkoff has in his blood, but whenever we're down, he just gives us fantastic talk and it just pumps all us up. The intensity, everything.
Well, it seemed in the second half when you guys, it was a slugfest. You guys were still down 21-14 there, and there were a couple of big plays. One over on the side to Jarrett over here, and then another next play for the touchdown to you, the jump ball. What was it? I know it looked like you guys saw something that you guys had the opportunity to go big.
My coach has a lot of faith in me. He thinks I can blow past any defender. I can make unbelievable catches, and they're just crazy.
So that was a big one over there. The other one here on the sideline. Remember, it was like a down and out play, and you had it holding the pass, took off. What were you thinking of that play?
It was just unbelievable. It was actually, I wasn't thinking anything. I wanted
get the ball, get in the end zone. Exactly. I want to score.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you guys scored 21 answered points in the second half. Shut them down.
Yeah.
What do you think the defense did? What did they do to kind of really step it up?
I think the defense was great. I think we stepped it up as the offense.
I guess your offense became defensive because you kept keeping them having the ball.
That's right.
So, thanks for your time.
Good stuff there, Bry, with Charles Njoku. And now let's hear your interview in the postgame. And Jimmy, I want to get your thoughts right after we play this interview with the Wayne Hills victorious quarterback, Tom Sharkey.
Tom, real quick, talk about the game. I know you want to talk to your guys, but talk about the game. How'd it feel?
It felt great. 2 weeks ago we were in the same situation, played awful in the first half. And, we were in the same exact situation. We were getting the ball at half, down 7 points. I had all the confidence in my guys. We just came out on top, and again, we were tougher with them in the second half.
You guys really stepped up, down 21-14. Big plays, couple passes really opened it up, right? Yeah. Njoku down the corner there.
Charles just played lights out tonight. So did all the receivers, all line. Charles played lights out, made a great catch, and then even he made the best play of the game.
On the sideline here?
Yeah.
Sideline?
Yeah. It was crazy.
Talk about that play. What was that play called?
That was called Flame. We just threw it up to him. Yeah.
Just still like a down and out.
Yeah.
And he outran, outbeat the whole team.
Yeah, that's it.
So how does it feel to get to this point? I mean, you had a long road to get here.
Yeah.
You know, you were at Cedar Grove, right? Verona. Then you went over, you went to Bergen.
Yeah.
And now here. Talk about what it means to you to get.
Just means crazy, you know. I don't think there's anybody in the state that's been through what I've been through. And, you know, I can't thank my dad and my mom enough. You know, they've done everything for me. I just love them so much. And it's been a crazy experience. I couldn't find a better way to go out than this.
Good stuff there, Bri. That wraps up the season of Wayne Hills audio. We've had a bunch of it over the year, and it was fun to follow the Patriots. Jimmy, I want to get to you quickly. You know, Tom Sharkey was you could hear it in the interview that Brian just did with him, too, some football odyssey for him to wind up as the state bowl champion of Group 4 in the North with the Wayne Hills Patriots, considering the winding road that was his high school career.
Yeah, you know, we mentioned a couple of weeks ago he started off at Bergen Catholic and decided to transfer home, obviously, with Johnny Langan and Bergen Catholic having a bunch of quarterbacks. He transferred back to Verona his junior year, had to sit half the season, had a good second half of the season. They moved to Wayne. And, you know, when you talk about Wayne Hills, we said that their big three of Hayek, Njoku, and Sharkey, in order for them to win big games, they needed to play exceptionally well, and sure enough, they did. You know, Phillipsburg had their chances in that game. They had the ball inside the 10-yard line. They threw an interception. But I tell you what, as good as their offense was, Wayne Hills, with their receivers and their passing game, their defense in the second half really came to play, really shut down Phillipsburg, and, led them to a nice victory.
Yes, congratulations, Wayne Hills, the Group 4 North Bowl Game champions. All right, let's move on here to the other game of local interest, the last one played by a Bergen County team for the 2018 high school football season. And, we talked to Mike Quick last week a little bit, and he had mentioned that he thought there was going to be a wide spread on Piscataway against Ridgewood, and not that I want to turn the screws on Mike Quick, but when else do we get the opportunity to do it? So we'll take it. It was not the blowout that was predicted, as Ridgewood, and Jimmy, I'll start with you. Yeah, Ridgewood gets down 10-0, and you think, oh, here we go. This is good. Maybe we're going to see a running clock in this game here to kick the festivities off on the early Saturday morning. It didn't turn out that way at all. They scored the next 13 points, took the lead, and really made things interesting.
They certainly did. When you play a Coach Johnson coach football team, you're going to have to work for it. They're not going to give up the big play, and I think everybody went in looking at the offensive, especially the run game for Piscataway and their three big running backs, that they were going to give, they were going to break some big runs with their speed. And, one thing Ridgewood does not do normally is they don't give up the big play. They make you line up again and line up again and line up again. And that's what they did. I mean, they were down 10-0 quick, as you mentioned. They came back, and Will Cardew breaks a fullback trap, and they were up 13-10 with about 4 minutes left in the second quarter. And now you start to see Piscataway wondering, what's going on here. But to their credit, before the half, they went down, they scored, they took the lead back, and they came out in the third quarter and, went for 5, 6, and 7s on their drive. They put up an 8-minute drive to take the game in their favor. And, Ridgewood fought. I mean, there's no question. There's no shame in that. They were a little bit undermanned. They gave a great effort. But the one thing, Cor, I have to mention is the class of Coach Higgins and the Piscataway team. They were up 10 points. They had the ball on the 3-yard line going in with 1:40 left. And they took a knee.
Yep.
And as Coach Higgins said, listen, it doesn't matter how much we win by, 1 point, 5 points, 20 points. We won the game. We have a lot of respect for that other team on the sideline. And what, we've talked about this numerous times at games. That is an impressive thing they did. And, that just shows you what a big-time program Piscataway has.
Yes. Now, I want to get to, I'm going to start with the Ridgewood side first. Brian, we'll get to your thoughts, too, because, you know this Piscataway program. You've seen them. They're the old rival of your high school alma mater. So I'm definitely interested to get your thoughts. But let's finish off Ridgewood here, because this is what it sounds like after a 13-game season that ends. What was Ridgewood, 10-3, or were they 9-3? Okay, so a 12-game season from Ridgewood, and this is what it's supposed to sound like when you empty the tank on the field at MetLife Stadium. Let's take a listen to my interview after that game with Chuck Johnson here, and notice the hoarseness in a voice that has, run the gauntlet all season long. Here is Chuck Johnson.
I told him all week we had to play the perfect game to win. Defensively, we did not set the edges that we needed to set on the perimeter. A couple times we were slow getting lined up. A lot of times they quick snapped us. I thought there were a number of situations where they were not set for an entire count. And we're a very multiple defense. We need that time to get set. So, we need that time.
In contrast to other seasons ending on this field where you go home with nothing. I mean, you guys are still state sectional champions, and this is kind of a weird. What'd you really lose? You took a good shot at a good team.
I told Jimmy. I told the kids Monday. I go, boys, you got a trophy down in the weight room. Nobody can ever take away from you. You got a league championship plaque. This is the perfect ending for this team. Why not try to play the best team in the state and see if you can win? And I'll tell you what, 31-21 ain't too bad. No.
All right, so Chuck Johnson and the Maroons gave it a run. The voice went, everything else went. They left it all out there at MetLife Stadium. And then the last interview I did on the season was with Piscataway running back Lord James. At the end of the game, he had a big touchdown run early to get things going for the Chiefs. And then he actually speaks very respectfully of a Ridgewood program that gave him all they could handle and how his team kind of stood up to the challenge and then, kind of ran away with it a little bit in the second half. Without further ado, here is Lord James.
Today, we knew this was a good team, and we knew when they get motivation and a little heat building up, they get good. They get better with that. They play through their motivation and confidence. So we knew we just had to come out, keep our heads up, keep pounding, keep working them, because we knew we were a better team overall. But we knew they were nothing to be messed with. So we just had to keep grinding at it, keep chipping away. So being down wasn't too bad for us. We didn't really mind too much. But we just knew we couldn't let up. We could work through it, is what I'm saying. We could work through it. We have people for it.
That drive you guys had to start the third quarter, I mean, that's what Ridgewood does to people to win games, and you did it back to Ridgewood. Yep. I mean, talk about that drive, the championship drive.
Honestly, that drive was just that was kind of anger. I could see it in my guys' eyes. They were a little fired up. And I was like, let me get fired up with them. So that was it right there, the drive. Yeah. That's what came out of it.
All right, good stuff there. And now I'm going to turn things over. We still have the last interview that we're going to play this season. Dan Higgins, the Piscataway head coach. But, Brian, you did that one, so why don't you talk about your perspective on this game, and then we'll play the last of your – I don't even know. We should go back and count how many interviews you did for the show this year. An infinite-type number.
Yeah. But this program, I know from when I was in high school, Piscataway has always been a very good program. We've gotten the opportunity to see them the last couple of years. We were down to see them last year. They played Bridgewater last year. Bridgewater having to knock them out of the playoffs. And Bridgewater's been to the playoffs the last 3 years against Westfield. So Piscataway hadn't been able to get through that. But when you look at them, they've been there. Coach has been there since 2001. His father was the longtime coach of the team. They've got a history in that school of, been in the playoffs. They have 9 sectional titles in the playoff area. They've been in the playoffs 26 times. They are a program that's had a lot of kids. I think we were talking about on the sideline that they're one of the few programs where they've had 3 kids, I think, were drafted in the first round 3 years in a row into the NFL. There was the big kid, Anthony Davis, came out of there. They had a bunch of kids come out of Rutgers. The one thing I'll say, you'll hear it from the coach talking about, I asked what he thought about Ridgewood and very respectful for them. One thing I noticed is, they only gave up the most points any game they gave up was 21. Ridgewood got 21. They gave up early in the season 21 points to South Brunswick. The second game after that, the most points they've given up in any game is 14 points. So Ridgewood was competitive. We didn't expect them to be close, and the favorite was picking them, be a blowout, and they kept in the game and fought. there was a lot of talent there. The line is big. They're always big at Piscataway, big line, and they always have running backs. The quarterback wasn't, it could have been a worse game if the quarterback he wasn't a top-notch quarterback, but he kept him in the, he just had to hand off. He didn't have to throw too much. But I noticed Ridgewood, what they did a little bit, which they had to do when they were playing Paramus up here and had a shot with Paramus, they had to throw it. And that's what they did a little bit, and that's what kind of get them in the game a little bit more. They had some plays over the top where they were able to beat the DBs of Piscataway. So, but Piscataway is an excellent program. Ridgewood has been a program that's been up on the top for a long time. So we had Dan Higgins. He's a really good guy. And so if you want to run that interview.
Yeah, I'm going to play Dan Higgins in 1 second. I just want to say before I forget is that Will Cardew became the all-time leading rusher in the Ridgewood football program, and that's saying a lot when you're talking about a team that's run the wing T every year under Chuck Johnson. A lot of great running backs who've had a lot of carrying of the ball, a lot of guys who piled up a lot of attempts, and Will Cardew finishes as the all-time leading rusher at Ridgewood. So congratulations to him, congratulations to Ridgewood, and let's hear from the victorious head coach, Dan Higgins of Piscataway.
Talk about the game and what it meant to you guys to win a bowl game here.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to put into words. I mean, the first-time bowl, a 13th win. I told our players this is making program history what it is. Never been, more than 12-0. So, these guys rose to the occasion in a big atmosphere and a big scene, and I'm really proud of them.
Talk about your seniors and some of the guys that really helped drive the team.
Well, our seniors are special. I mean, it's the same team coming back from last year. We're going to miss them. They've been working their butts off all year long, and you saw like when Juwan went down, we had another guy step right up, and that's sort of like how it's been all year long with these guys, so that just kind of shows you what kind of team we got.
Talk about your running back, Best. He's really good.
Oh, yeah. He's excellent, he's behind Juwan, who's unbelievable, and, you got to love one another and be unselfish with this kind of talent that we have, and everyone's waiting their turn to get the ball, and it's not easy when you're a talented player, but it just speaks to like how much they care about one another.
Right. Talk about your opponent. Most people would have picked you guys. I think Mike Quickie picked you to win 35-7 this morning. Talk about them a little bit. They kept it close in the game.
Well, yeah. I mean, I had there was no way that Ridgewood wasn't going to fight us. Our team knew that, and we knew that Coach Johnson does a great job with that program. I mean, we went up there to scrimmage him because of respect for the program, and he made us better back then. He made us better today. We knew we were going to fight the whole time, and there was going to be a fight. His kids never quit. That's a testament to him and his staff.
Right.
All right, that's a wrap on the game action of the 2018 high school football season in New Jersey. A good time was had by all, especially us here on the Football Show. We enjoyed covering it. And a new feature that now we are lining ourselves up to have to carry through next year into Season 7 and beyond. It is the inaugural edition of the Football Show Awards. Starting right now, we're going to name our teams of the year. Now, we have one from the Big North, and we have them from the NJIC. We have one from the NJIC. Well, we'll go with Jimmy first. Jimmy, you crown our Big North champion.
Well, it's the team that from week 1 through the end of the season took on all comers, played a very, very difficult schedule. And it's the Ramapo Green Raiders. I mean, what an impressive season for Coach Gibbs. First team to go 13-0 in the state of New Jersey. They played that extra game, led by A.J. Wingfield, Max Baker, the defensive line. Just truly, truly a dominating performance all the way through the season.
Yes, and the NJIC Team of the Year, as voted on by our illustrious panel of North Jersey football insiders. Brian Carr, who is it?
Of the one and only, the Shed team, Mr. Nick Del Caso and Adam Bieri, the Hasbrook Heights Aviators. They had an excellent season, 12-0, a bowl win, a state sectional title, NJIC champs. The record the last 3 years is 33-1. The one thing about their playoff run this year, they had to play 4 straight undefeated teams. And from October the 19th through November the 17th, it was Park Ridge in the NJIC, and then they played Rutherford and NJIC. Then they went into the actual state playoffs and played undefeated New Providence, Weequake, and then they went down to Shabazz in Newark and played a one-loss Shabazz team and made it through that. So they've had a really good season. And you know what? There's not many other teams that have won 2 state championships in a row, and I think it's the first time for them. So we congratulate them. And their only loss in this whole time is to Rutherford, a 2-time state champ now, and also that was the NJIC championship game last year. So they're in good company, I'm sure.
Yeah, and it was an overtime loss too. Let's not forget that. Oh wait, we have a word from the shed here. If you switch over now and pull up the audio presentation that you are listening to here on NorthJerseySports.com, we have a special message from Adam the Bear Biera and head coach Nick Del Calzo. This was before they accepted the award, but they wanted us, I think they had an inkling of what was coming, so watch this.
Live from the shed.
Enjoying a victory cigar here.
Victory cigar. Stinking up the place.
We got the heater.
Got the heater. Gonna pick out the rings tonight.
TV's on.
Pick out the rings.
There it is. What's that, the Wheat Stop?
That's a backyard bug control we got. Cutter.
Bike. Chairs. We got everything. We got gas cans here.
Gas can.
You guys know.
Biofeed for the lawn.
Biofeed. You guys have been around. Thanks for the shout out, boys. It was a great year, and we'll do it again next year. All right, for Pete. We hope.
For Pete.
We bid adieu to the shed for the 2018 season. Hopefully we'll be back there again next year. We will certainly be inviting ourselves to the backyard. All right, so let's move on here now. Let's move on to our player of the year offensively, and I will set this up by saying this was the closest and most debated award that we are handing out tonight because from our perspective, there were 3 overwhelmingly qualified candidates and more, but the 3 that we had it narrowed down to, it's hard. I mean, we're splitting hairs here when you talk about Josiah Purdy from Hasbrook Heights and you talk about Johnny Mendez from Rutherford and what they meant to their teams and their programs and really the great season that was had by both of them this year in the NJIC. They both won state championships, but when it comes to the player of the year on the offensive side of the ball, Bri, who'd we go with?
We'll have to go with the Green Raider, Mr. A.J. Winfield. A.J. was a team leader up there, 13-0, winning a state championship and the bowl title, which they were looking to get. But A.J., was do it all. Led the team. He was out one game. He had a shoulder issue. I think he had a shoulder issue most of the season. But A.J. was pretty high up on the game there. Threw for about 2,500 yards. He ran for over 500 yards. He was a do-it-all, make-it-all happen. Whatever it took to do for his team to win, he was like the heart and soul.
Yes, absolutely. And they just... Yeah, it's such a diversified offense, and to be able to, forget physically do it, you gotta be able to do that part of it. But to digest all of that information, make all the proper reads, and distribute the ball is just as difficult. The mental aspect of playing quarterback in round post spread formation. He had a lot of weapons around him. That sure does make it easier, but still picking out the right guy at the right time. A.J. Wingfield, I don't think anybody did it better. Jimmy, anything to add about A.J.?
No, just, you mentioned that offense and his ability to spread the ball around and more importantly, know he's going to get hit. If teams feel that they're going to come after, they got to bring pressure on him, they got to hit him. And I'll tell you what, the first Riverdale game we went, he was banged up 2 or 3 times, limped off the field, and just kept coming back. And, again, tremendous job by him. And, like you mentioned, the other 2, Purdy and Mendez, I mean, we could have went with either one of them. Also, they had outstanding years and careers. So, very, very close, but Mr. Winfield gets the vote.
We will miss all 3 of those guys next year, for sure. Player of the Year, defense, as selected by our panel. Jimmy, go ahead.
When we looked at Defensive Player of the Year, we figured we'd go with, one of the big boys in the non-public division, and who had the best defense consistently all year? It was St. Joseph, and their quarterback in the secondary, their safety is Connor Greco. Very intelligent football player, will hit you. He was the leader of that defense, and, recently a couple of big-time schools have noticed he was originally committed to Rutgers. He decommitted. He just recently got offers from Cal Berkeley, and then I believe yesterday or the day before from Oregon. So, other people are starting to take notice. He's going to certainly have a tremendous career, and he led the St. Joe's Green Knights to the non-public Group 4 title.
Yes, and the number one ranking in the state. All right, next one, Coach of the Year. We've, all of the candidates are well known. You got Andy Howell at Rutherford. You got Nick Del Calzo, Hasbrook Heights, Drew Gibbs, Ramapo. Everybody who won a bowl game, a state sectional championship, was certainly discussed and in the mix. But a guy who won neither is our head coach of the year, Brian Carr. Why don't you drop the name?
Head coach of the year, he's from the Lyndhurst Bears, Mr. Richie. I always forget how to say it right. Richie
Tuero.
Richie Tuero. Richie led his team to a 9-2 record this year, sectional final. It was the first time in 35 years that the Bears had been to the final. The last couple of years, he was 5-4. He's an emotional leader, and we saw him on the sideline a few times against Verona and also against Rutherford. Richie he's also went to school there. He's been on the staff. He was on our show when he was on the staff for around 9 years and been the head coach for the last 5. Richie's done a good job bringing the program to where it is now, and they hope to continue to be at this place and be in the sectional finals every year.
Yes, and you forgot to mention the guy, we've had a lot of great guests on this season on the football show, 15 weeks of doing this, but nobody got me more fired up about high school football this year than when we talked to Richie Tuero. I mean, it was great. He was inspirational, and you could see how he got the kids to buy into forget his system. How about his enthusiasm and his sense of tradition, his sense of pride in the Lyndhurst program? Leadership starts at the top. Right there, you listen to that guy's energy and his love of place, and it certainly spilled over into one of the best seasons that Lyndhurst has had over the last 30 years. All right, game of the year, if you were listening closely, Jimmy foreshadowed it. It was an overtime classic. It was, Jimmy?
Yeah, you had Ramapo defeating Riverdale up at Ramapo. Riverdale took an overtime. Riverdale took a touchdown lead with about 8 minutes left. A.J. Wingfield leads Ramapo back to overtime. Ramapo scores on the first play in overtime, and Riverdale had 4th and goal on the 1-yard line to try to tie the game up. Ramapo snuffed it out, and Ramapo winds up winning the game, and we all left the field knowing that we were going to see that game again, and sure enough, we did.
Yeah, absolutely. It finished the way it was supposed to, the way it has for each of the last couple of years. So, Ramapo Riverdale, great game, one to remember, one that was covered here on NorthJerseySports.com by Matt Small, edition of Small Ball. So you can check it out on our YouTube page where you find our shows, youtube.com/NorthJerseySports. That brings us into, we're a little jumbled, maybe not in the best order here giving out the awards, but hey, give us a break. It's our first time doing this. So, Assistant Coach of the Year, Bri, and don't speak too long on this recipient. He has gotten more airtime and more shout-outs and more everything than any other assistant coach in the history of multimedia presentations here on NorthJerseySports.com. Who is he?
Well, this guy, he had to come up to the press box with us, to get more love from us. He was up in the press box on Saturday night. He's the one and only, the Adam Biera, one of our favorite coaches, and we had a great time this year getting to know him at the Shed. Coach Adam is really a good guy, and one of the things I want to mention, he mentioned about his Josiah Purdy. He said players like Josiah only come around once. He certainly made the most of his career. We couldn't make him our offensive player of the year, but, Adam was lucky to have Josiah there, and Josiah was a do-it-all. He could do it all. Tim Tebow passes. He could run. He could catch the ball receiving, one-hand catches. The kid was one of a kind, so Adam was lucky, and he's an intense coach on the sideline. He's pretty fiery. but we got to know him. He's a really good guy. We have a lot of, and I go back and forth with him. We send him messages and stuff.
Yeah.
So Adam is a good guy. Congratulations, but be able to give him that award.
Yeah, he's great. And the runner-up for Assistant Coach of the Year is Joe Klaus from Old Japan. Just because Joe Klaus. The Breakthrough Team of the Year. Hope Doviak is next to me here. She has Mr. Klaus as a teacher, or at least is in his school, so she gets the joke. Joe Klaus, being Joe Klaus, is the Assistant Coach of the Year. The Breakthrough Team of the Year, Jimmy, do you have that written down, or do you need some prodding?
Yes, I do. I believe it's right off Route 17 there, the Spartans of Paramus.
Correct.
10-1. Jumped out, every week they were picking up big wins, and we were saying, okay, that's another win, but we'll see when they play this team. And they beat that team. They beat Ridgewood in overtime. And they just keep going on and on and on. And I tell you what, Joe Sabella, very close to winning that Coach of the Year. Just fell a little bit short, has done a tremendous job. 10-1. They played in the playoffs against Riverdale. We mentioned 3 or 4 times this year how tough it is to beat Riverdale twice, and unfortunately for them in the semifinals, they lost the game. But let's not forget that game was played in the first half in a monsoon, and you know what? Coach Sabella has the Paramus Spartans back where they belong.
Yes, absolutely true. All right, the Breakthrough Player of the Year, and I'm leaving this one for you, Bri, because I want to hear you go after. I want to hear you tackle this name, talking about tackle football. Go ahead.
Peter Parlay. Peter Parlay.
I think it's Peter Partilla.
For Lyndhurst Bears. Partilla, you're right. Peter Partilla, you're right.
Yes.
But Peter's a junior running back for them. He had well over 200 yards in their state playoff game against Verona. He ran for 1,700 yards this year, an average of 7.7 yards a carry. He had 24 touchdowns, 23 running, and 1 receiving, and he had the big overtime touchdown for them to win that game. Not overtime, but in regulation at the end of the game to win an exciting game over Verona and get to the final. Peter, we look forward to seeing him again next year. And he had also, by the way, he had 86 tackles on defense. Yep. So Peter was an all-around guy. He had 18 tackles for losses as well. So Peter is a offensive and a defensive player for that team, and that should help Coach Tuero get back next year to a successful season.
Yes, the next award, now we're going to do some miscellaneous awards here, some things that we can think of. First of all, we're going to give out the inaugural Bobby Maines Award. So, Jimmy, you got this one. First, why don't we explain who Bobby Maines is, and then you can announce the winner.
Yeah, Bobby, first of all, Bobby's a great guy. He's one of the Washington Township WCTV guys, along with John and Larry. And, Bobby's comes to a lot of games with us, and Bobby's always the first one to say, hey, guys, I'll drive. Don't worry about it. He's almost the chauffeur. The one weekend in the playoffs, he took us to Park Ridge, then over to DePaul, then Verona. And, we have a great time with Bobby. Bobby also this weekend, the last 2 weekends at the stadium, would say, hey, guys, what do you want to eat? I'm picking up sandwiches. So, it's always fun having Bobby. And, he's just a great guy.
Yes. So the inaugural Bobby Maines Award goes to a player who exemplifies teamwork and driving you guys around. I mean, the ability to take some suffering too. So, Jimmy, who gets the award?
Well, when the person that really fit the bill was Max Baker at Ramapo. Tremendous ball player, both sides of the ball, receiving, defensive back, very, very tough. And then you throw into the mix that we find out late in the season he was playing the last 4 to 5 games with a broken bone in his foot, and you could not see it on the field. No. Also his brother went down in the first game. Actually, I believe it was either first or second score of the game for Ramapo. Broke his leg. He was out the end of the year, and I really think that he refused to come out, Max, and he played that season for his brother and had an outstanding season.
Yeah, I saw him today, actually. I was up doing some photography work at Ramapo High School, and also a great kid. So nobody more deserving. Max Baker. We're moving on to the best fans that we saw all year, and I don't think it was Woodrow Wilson with the 200 contingent that they brought to MetLife Stadium. But, Bri, you did see this whack pack, for lack of a better term, in action during the season. Who were the best fans that we saw this year in North Jersey high school football?
Hey, we saw them twice. They traveled well. We were up in the name of the team is the Lyndhurst Bears. The fans came out. The team had a great year, 9-2, and we saw them early against New Milford, and we were saying that they probably have one of the best bands we've seen, the Lyndhurst team. And then we get to see it again. They travel up to Verona and get a good crowd. They probably have more Lyndhurst fans in Verona at the Verona game than Verona people. And then we go down and they go to the state championship game in Rutherford, their next door neighbor. And no discrediting to Rutherford, but there were more Lyndhurst people in Rutherford to support the Lyndhurst Bears. So, they released the team, towns, we noticed that. And we seem to, feel it that the team, and the stands came out to support the team, and it was pretty impressive what we noticed.
Yes, it all goes back to the theme of what Richie Tuero is building down there in Lyndhurst with his infectious energy. All right, the next award is one that's, I'll handle this one. It is our high school football manager of the year. And I only know one of them. We're only close to one of them, So this award has to go to Hope Doviak of the Northern Valley Otapan Fighting Golden Knights. All right, she's my daughter. There's a little nepotism involved. But I can't, here's the interesting part of this award because, in covering high school football for the last 25 years, I show up on game days. I don't see what goes on behind the scenes. I don't see practice schedules and all that other stuff. I know it's hard, don't get me wrong. I mean, it's been a long time since I was in high school, and it has changed a lot since then, so there's nothing to really compare it against from that perspective. Until Otapan head coach Brian Dunn was gracious enough to take my daughter on as the manager of the football team, and she started early in August. I mean, early in June. They did a 7-on-7 up in Clarkstown that, was 5 days, and, dropping her off, picking her up, and all the other kids, obviously with the football team, their parents were doing the same thing that I was, and then she was out in Florham Park, she was at Rutgers, all these other places throughout the course of the summer every day, and it really made me understand and appreciate just how much hard work goes into a high school football season from everybody involved, from the coaches to the players to the support staff to the parents to everybody else. So Hope Doviak gets the award because she made her father a little bit smarter. Let's move on now. And Brian, I'm going to give this one to you because I know he's been one of your favorite players to cover over the last few years here. You've done a bunch of interviews that we have played on the show in the last couple years. It is the Tough Guy Award, and it goes to who?
The Tough Guy Award goes to one of the Rutherford Bulldogs, and that being Lawson Fisher. Lawson's been a 3-year starter for the Bulldogs. He's one of those linemen. We try to grab some linemen. They don't get a lot of credit. They don't have a lot of stats. But Lawson stands out on both offense and defense and helped his team become a 2-time state champion. And Lawson's a pretty good guy. I get to meet him and talk with him. And, he comes out there with his crazy, whatever that stuff they put in their eye black. He comes out and walks across the field at heights. He walks across. Where is Lawson? He's the last guy across the field walking with no shirt on. There's Lawson, but he's a leader of the team, and he's a good guy. But I guess you got to be a little crazy sometimes, But
Yes.
Lawson's a good guy and helps Andy Howell and his group. He's kind of one of the leaders on that team with Johnny Mendez and Kyle Russell. So he's one of the captains, and Lawson is our tough guy.
Yes, and we had some debate over the next award, the Kicker of the Year. Well, I guess our special team / Kicker of the Year. Jimmy, you want to handle that one?
Yeah, the two guys that were neck and neck, all year, obviously the shoe up at St. Joe's, who wound up setting the career points mark for kickers in the state of New Jersey, and a first-year player for Don Bosco Prep, Mr. Fava, who had, at one time was at 12 field goals. So, that was very, very tight. Half the staff wanted to go with the shoe. Half the staff wanted to go Mr. Fava. Mr. Fava was also a great punter, but in the end, you have to give it to the man that did it for 4 years.
Yep.
And the award goes to the shoe.
Yeah, and come on. I mean, we're not even giving out his name because he's more commonly known as the Shoe. When you have a kicker whose name is the Shoe, he's our kicker of the year. And Jimmy, I'm going to go back to you for the last one. Our last award this year, the last word on the 2018 high school football season, because Brian got to speak about a lot of the other offensive talent and coaches and everything else, and I know how much time you spent following and enjoying the fruits of the labor of the Hasbrook Heights Aviators. So why don't you give us our under-the-radar player of the year?
Without question. Hasbrook Heights the last 2 years had won sectional titles with two different quarterbacks, if you remember.
Yep.
Mr. Clank and Mr. Quattrone. So going into this year, they're going with their third quarterback, Spencer Lee. And when you play a first-year quarterback, you never really know what to expect. And I'll tell you what, as the season went on, his completion percentage was outrageous. He wound up, I asked Coach Bear the other day at Giant Stadium, his completion percentage for the year was 71%, which is
in high school,
which is unbelievable. He directed that offense. He made the throws when he had to, especially in the Rutherford game. And as Coach Bear took the handcuffs off him as far as throwing the ball, he was just tremendous. So our award goes to Mr. Spencer Lee.
And absolutely deserved. All right, boys, final thoughts on the season, Bri.
Man, we saw Hasbrook Heights have a great year. Rutherford, it was a good year. NGIC, we enjoyed that ride. And, Ramapo had a great year. It's too bad it has to end, but everybody's got to need some time to recover and get ready for next year. So we do, and they do. But it was a great season, and we got to meet a lot of good players. Got to go to the shed, so it's a fun year, and it's always good to get to know some more coaches and players every year, and we just get builds and builds. We have to find another shed, or an additional shed, right?
Yeah, well, I think Jimmy Cavallo's Pizzeria is high on the list of next places that we will do a live remote from. That's definitely up there. Bri, last question for you for the season. What are the odds of a trip to Connecticut for the state semifinals up there, or final, whatever it is?
Well, it's Bobby, our awardee, Bobby Maines. He's up for it. I'm just waiting to get the time of this game. It's on Saturday. I don't know where it's going to be. It's Greenwich against New Canaan, and the story behind this, as Mike Quick report, and I've checked on it's a father-son matchup. So the father is at New Canaan. The son is now at Greenwich, is the head coach at Greenwich, doing really well. I looked it up, doing really well. And so you got father-son matchup, and I just noticed, Greenwich just beat up another team really, really bad.
Newtown.
In the semi. Newtown. So it looks possible. I just got to get the time.
Listen,
I can't go late because I have to go out that night. I'm going out on Saturday night, so if the game is too late, I can't go.
Well, let me just, I beg of you, take your wife out for a nice dinner, first of all, and don't let this Connecticut game get in the way. And second of all, if you do go to the Connecticut game, don't get any audio and don't call me for a show. We are not doing the Connecticut edition of the football show on NorthJerseySports.com. Jimmy, final thoughts.
We talked about it right before we went on the air, how fast the season goes. It seems like yesterday we were, doing the preview show right before Labor Day, and now we're in December. It just, it seems that year after year it goes faster and faster. What I'd like to do, Cor, is I'd like to congratulate all the senior football players in North Jersey that, had careers. It's amazing how fast 4 years goes by, and in a sport right now that, a lot of things are against it. The average kid doesn't want to put the time in that it takes to be a football player in this day and age. Whether you're, an All-American or you're a kid that never plays, or whether you're on a championship team or a team that never won a game, you really have to respect what these kids do and their efforts.
Yeah, well, Jimmy, that is the perfect way to end another great season. I want to just personally thank you guys for keeping this thing going, for coming up with some new ideas and bringing the energy every week. It's been fun. And here, I can promise this. We'll do it again next year. We'll see you on the football show.
Follow the leader.